cough, so please excuse if there are some breaks when I need some water or so. Yeah, and I'm really happy to be here. I have a little bit of different topic I want to talk about. So for me, it's all about how you can do really good Power Platform projects if you want to do this in your company. And yeah, if we if we talk about Power Platform governance, I said, okay, maybe a good slogan is unlocking innovation while staying in control, because that's the battle we always have. So innovation and all the governance part, all the stuff our IT departments are doing. So if I talk to my colleagues from the IT department, they often say, okay, you should know what we are doing the whole day. And then maybe it would be a little bit easier when you have a request that you are patient, that you know that it takes a while until we can deliver something and so on. And then I say, yeah, I understand. Um, and on the same time, I also understand that people in the business want to have a solution for their daily problems, and they cannot wait because it takes so much time to do this by their own. Yeah, and only a few words about myself. So if you want to stay in contact afterwards with me, or if you have a question, and yes, today we have the chat, but maybe some questions come up later, then you find me on LinkedIn. You also find me on X, but on LinkedIn I'm a little bit more active. And as you can see here, I brought my favorite hashtags with me here at the top right corner. I'm doing nearly everything around the Microsoft world, so I call it from a business perspective, it's modern workplace. But if you go to the tools or the technique, then it's sometimes Microsoft Teams, sometimes business applications with the Power Platform, Copilot, Microsoft Azure, Azure AI, and so on. That's all a mix because it cannot really decide to focus on one single topic. Yeah, and it depends on so I would say the situation at Microsoft, what they are doing, where there's some new stuff, because I want to check out every new stuff and see how it fits in our daily business life. Yeah, but if we talk about Power Platform governance, I already mentioned the business. So here I want to introduce you to Tanya. So Tanya is one of my friends, and she's also a colleague. So we left school together, then we started at the same company. She does a little bit something different than I. So I have a developer background. I'm doing a lot of software development and consultancy out there in the Microsoft area, and she is working in the back office. So when if I have done my job and I, for example, have a service report at the end of the month, so the customer signed it, everything is fine, and now we need to write the invoices. That's something Tanya needs to do. And we often have the discussion that Tanya says, okay, it's so boring. My job, there are so many business processes which could be optimized. So if you talk about one single business process, then this needs an upgrade. It really needs an upgrade. And when I'm talking to Tanya, she already knows I would say the little game we are playing, because I ask her a lot of questions, and I can ask these questions here as well. So if we talk about the three main questions, the first would be, do you really know the current process? So if you think about a process which is boring, then maybe you only know a part of this process and not the whole mess. So it can be really helpful to know the complete process, how it's done today. And how it's done today can already mean that it's not in a digital format. So think about that you maybe start with a Word document and then you print it, and then you need to hand it over to another person. And after this, you don't know the status of this request form anymore because it's in the hand of another person. So you see all these gears here on the slide. So If you hand it over to the next person, then you don't see what's happening there because you're focused on your part of the business process. Yeah, and if you know about the complete process, the next question would be, how could we support or improve this process? Yes, because if you have a non-digital process and now you want to have a digital process, it doesn't make it better when you only focus on the digitalization. You need to think about if you want to change something. Yeah, and if you now have an answer for question two, so you know what you want to do, so maybe it's a modification of the current process, then there's only I would say it's some kind of a security question because now you have an idea what you want to build. So you want to have maybe an app, you need one or two dashboards in the background, you have an approval process and so on. And then question number three helps you to rethink it a little bit. So do you really want to support every single step of this process? Sometimes there is the situation that you say, okay, this part of the process, it's more a communication part, so people talk to each other, and at the end of the conversation they have a result, hopefully. Maybe you only need the result in your business process and not the communication which helps you to come to this result. So I see it quite often that people think, okay, I need to build a solution for the whole process, but maybe some parts could be outside of this whole solution you are thinking about. Yeah, and now Tanya did all this did answer all these questions, and then she was thinking about, yeah, I'm using Microsoft Teams. I know about SharePoint in the background, and yes, we have a SharePoint-based intranet and so on. And I've also heard about Microsoft lists, so I can have my own lists and have some kind of structured data. Maybe I start with this. So her first idea is that she uses SharePoint. We could now discuss if SharePoint can be used as some kind of a database or not. I think everybody will have an idea or a statement for this. But for Tanya, that's the only tool she has to do this, except of Excel. And I told her, please don't start with Excel because then you add more formulas, you add more sheets and so on, and then your solution can get really complicated. So she tries to start with a SharePoint list, and yes, she knows, okay, I can add columns, I can decide which column type to use, and maybe if it's a mandatory field or not. And yeah, the only other thing is that she can decide which order she wants to have if we look on the columns. Mm, Yeah, and then that's yeah, as I said, once upon a time. So it feels a little bit like a fairy tale, and every time when I see a picture from InfoPass, I feel pretty old. Yeah, once upon a time there was a tool, and this was called InfoPass, and InfoPass was a solution. It was part of the Microsoft product suite, so you could have it beside Outlook, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, and so on, and people were building electronic forms with this designer. So it was a tool for power users. You see here, if we look on a SharePoint form, then on the right side, you see some columns like ID, the created by, created fields, and so on. Yeah, and you could design your form as you want to. So different coloring, different orders. So maybe also with multiple views. So think about a wizard, and you have maybe 50 fields or so, and you want only 10 fields on each wizard step. You could do this. You could work with rules for visibility. So maybe only if you um, activate a checkbox, then the next part will be visible or not. And at the end, you could also decide if you want to send an email with all the entered data to other people. So that was pretty cool. And as I said, Tanya and I, we left school together. So she learned a lot of about me during the past 20 years. And she remembered, okay, there was something like InfoParse. And yeah, now told her InfoParse is not there anymore. That was the only thing I could tell her, because then I went on vacation. So I said to her, maybe your business process can wait until I'm back, or maybe you talk to one of my colleagues, and you see one of my colleagues here. It's Daniel on the left side. So and Tanya said, okay, I don't want to wait, so I give it a try. I don't know Daniel so far, but we can change it. And then she said, okay, Daniel, I've worked on a SharePoint list. Yeah, to be honest, it's a Microsoft list, so something which is in my environment. I need to share this with other people if I want to, but I started by my own. And now I'm struggling because I want to have some more logic into my form. Maybe I want to build some workflows right there as well. Um, I'm not sure how to do this, so maybe you can help me a little bit. Yeah, and Daniel, he is a software developer. So I have a software developer background, but I'm playing with all the different stuff in the Microsoft area. Daniel is a little bit more focused, and he now is thinking about, okay, we go with HTML. Maybe something you told me, maybe I need to write a web service with .NET. And yeah, if we go with SPFX, so I can build you a pretty cool web part he's talking about, then we will work with tools like Gulp, Joman, Node.js, and so on. And you already created a SharePoint list. Maybe I need to go with PowerShell and PnP to get all the specification out of this list, because I need this in my development environment. A lot of buzzwords out there. So Tanya doesn't have an idea what was Daniel talking about. So she's asking herself, what does he want to do? I have no idea. Yeah, and the next part is she really hopes that he understood her, because now we have the standard maybe conflict between business and development, because development is talking in a more technical language, and maybe the business doesn't understand the technical person, and the other way it's the same. So Tanya is talking in her business language, and maybe Daniel as a technical person doesn't understand everything she is talking about. Yeah, and isn't there a better option? I think everybody knows that we have a better option right there. So the better option is the new world. So you see here Galadriel, I'm a lot of the Rings fan, so everybody gets a lot of the Rings slides during my sessions. The world is changing, and the world is changing pretty fast, and now for a long time now, because if you look on the hobbits, so the hobbits are small persons in the Lord of the Rings story. So if you don't or didn't watch Lord of the Rings so far, so maybe do this after this event. So here in this situation, what is important? You see this four people, so four hobbits. Hobbits are very, very small. Um, uh, yeah, humans is not the right word, but I'm thinking about another wording at the moment. So they're very small. They are friendly. They are not going and thinking about adventures and so on. So you wouldn't think that they play a big role in the whole world. But here in this story, they become the heroes of the whole story, and you see a lot of people in the background, and they are all taking a knee. So these four get the highest or tallest persons in the situation. So, and I like this the scene, because here in the scene you see how they realize that they become the heroes of the story. And I want you to become the hero of your own story. So you can build an app, you can build a solution, so everybody in the business can start with this and maybe get support from technical people and at the side. Yeah, and if you think about how you can become the hero of your own story, so in Microsoft 365, we have a lot of tools out there. Mm, Maybe it is a solution to go with Microsoft Forms and lists in a combination or so, or you want to have something in Teams and Planner and whatever. But the real power comes with the Power Platform. So, and now mm, I think it depends how you like to start. So, Power Automate and Power Apps, the mostly used services here on the Power Platform. But there are also people who say, okay, I'm more interested in results, so in dashboards, reporting, and so on. So for them, Power BI would be the better option. But in most of the cases, people start and say, okay, I need to collect data, so I need a Power App where I can enter my data. I need Power Automate for my workflows, so for the business processes themselves. Um, and then if you don't go the way like Tanya, and she wants to save everything in SharePoint lists, then maybe the Dataverse is also a good option for you, because Dataverse is the company-wide database you can use in the Microsoft 365 world. Yes, there's a separate licensing, so think about your costs, but yeah, I only can tell you it's worth it. So if you have this company-wide central database, then all your applications can go hand in hand. Because think about maybe from an HR perspective, you have an application and you're managing your recruiting process. You have another application where you are talking about vacancies. So the step before you get an application which for a position which is planned. Maybe you have another application for developing the skills of your people and so on. So everything can look on the same data, and the data is evolving, is extending, so it gets more and more, but it's at the same place. Mm. We will not talk about Copilot Studio today so much, because most of the people start with Power Automate and Power Apps. If we talk about the governance now in a few minutes, yeah, an AI builder, as it's the last point on the slide I didn't mention already, the AI builder, that's also a separate licensing, but it gives you the power for AI models, not especially the generative AI stuff, so it's there as well. But what I really like there is the option to build a model maybe for service reports, because service reports was something I mentioned at the beginning. So think about a service report, and the date of this report is at the top right corner. Then you have a table with some details, and at the end of the table you have an amount of hours you have worked for a customer in this month. Then you can create a model which is able to extract this information from out of documents with this layout type. That would be something you can build. So maybe you have a workflow is Power Automate, and every time when you add a new document in a special SharePoint library, then this workflow would run and would use an AI model out of the AI builder and extract all the relevant information out of this document and maybe send it to SAP or to another system where you want to use this data. Mm. So it's time for the makers. Everything is ready. Should we start building our app at this moment? Maybe not. So it's always good to go one step back and think about if the wheel was already invented. And if we talk about the Microsoft world, then Microsoft Dynamics 365 is also there. And Dynamics brings up a lot of built-in modules for the standard business processes out there. So if you look on the slides or on the picture, you see that there's something for sales, for marketing, for human resources, finance, and so on. So if you have something where you say, okay, I want to build or improve a business process, maybe it's already there. And then, yes, Dynamics as a ready-to-use product. So it doesn't matter which modules you choose. So a ready-to-use product, it also will have some licensing. So these are extra costs, but you also have to compare if these costs are more or less than building it by your own or building it by another person. Mm. But now let's imagine we made our decision. Dynamics is not an option for the stuff we want to build. So that would be the point where we say, let's build an app to support our business process. So, and maybe it's this case. So there are also incoming emails. There's an attachment at the email, and I want to have a workflow which extracts this data, maybe data also out of the email body as well, but also out of this document. I want to check if there's a contact in my CRM system. So maybe I can attach this information to my contact. And then I want to trigger further processes. And at the end, I want to mark this email as done. So whatever done means to you. So if you move this email to another subfolder in your inbox, or if you delete this email, or if you work with categories, it doesn't really matter. So if I want to build this app now, so I'm thinking, I don't need an app. only need a workflow and Power Automate and maybe a little bit AI stuff for the extraction part. So the second step. Yeah, I would start. So I would now build my workflow and then I would use this. The IT doesn't know about this, except when I need Dataverse or the AI builder, because as I said, it's a separate licensing. Then I would talk to the IT and say, hey, I want to have some more options. Please, can you provide me Dataverse and the AI builder? So, and there's the moment where I say stop. So what about the IT department? If we are talking about Power Platform and and we are talking about the citizen developers, the makers, or whatever wording we are choosing, you don't think about the IT because that was the innovation part so far. So we were talking about Tanya can build her solution by her own. Maybe it's not only one solution, but a second one, a third one. So everybody loves Tanya at the end because she finds a solution for everything. But what happens when Tanya gets sick or Tanya leaves the company? Then we have a lot of solutions there and no owner of the solution. So that's the first point. You always need an owner for a solution. And before the citizen development, before all the low-code platforms like the Power Platform, it was quite easy because the IT department was the master of all the business applications. They were thinking about which application is supported by which person of the IT department. They were thinking about if they need a second support line for all the people from a business perspective. So think about the recruiting and HR related business applications. Maybe the second support line would be somebody from the HR department. Mm. So there were a lot of rules and they were really static. And now with the citizen development, if you don't do anything, you have no rules. You have some kind of anarchy here at this point. So if you want to have now some kind of rules, some kind of guidelines. So rules is something which sounds really hard. So think about guidelines. We can do something different. And Daniel, for example, because he is a software developer, he would be really familiar with this. So if you're talking to the business, and maybe at the first point it's not so, I would say, so self-explaining, but you will get through this. So the first point is um, you need a separation between the part where you build your solution. So you build your workflow. Um, Maybe you want to test it by yourself. Then you have a part where you say, okay, it's my work is not done completely, but it's a good milestone, and maybe other people can test this result as well. So that would be the middle here of the screen. So the QA, the quality assurance part. So, and there other people can test your solution, your milestone, while you are building the rest. If you are finished with all the stuff, then you would say, okay, there's a second round, and the other people can test it. And the third part, so that would be the productive use. That's also separated. So I can develop my solution or develop a little bit more. It can be tested, and then at the end, all the others and my personal self, we are end users. Mm. And as you see, there's some space here on the slide. So now we will see how it's working. So we have the maker. He is there in orange. We have the IT department in a gray coloring. And now we are starting from left to right. So the first thing is build your solution. So think about if it's a Power App, if it's a flow, if it's a dashboard or whatever, or it's a combination. You build your solutions. And then that's something people often forget. So create a documentation. You don't need to write a whole book. So a documentation can also be one page or maybe some notes or whatever of a document. Mm, you need to test your solution. You need to be sure that your solution will run, and you say, okay, at this moment, I don't find any errors, so other people can test this. And prepare the test by other users. So if your users are working very close to you, then they may know about your solution. If it's a solution for people who are not familiar with you and your wording, then maybe it's a good point to write some bullet points what the people can test. And then we learn the new word deployment. So a maker requests a deployment by the IT department. So here, all the stuff here in the development area is done by the maker. That's his, I would say, his control. Then, in the middle, we had the request of deployment. The IT got an approval request, and the IT said, okay, I deploy this on the quality assurance area. And now the IT can check the solution. So that's a clever point. So the IT is not building the solution, but they get the request to deploy the solution. And at this point, they know about this solution. They test the solution. The business can test the solution. So in some cases, you will be your own business or your own end user, but in a lot of use cases out there, other people are your end users. So the business needs to test it and say, okay, it's fine. And then you need to get some approvals. It depends on your company. It depends on the environment. It also depends on the data you are using. So we see some examples here. So if you have a working council and you are working um, with personal data. so names, email addresses, and so on, then the work council will probably ask for this. If you have a team for data protection, for security, compliance, and so on, and you are using maybe data from SAP or some data not every person can access, then they will be there and you would need to get an approval that your solution is in a correct format, in a correct way. If you got the approvals, if your solution is tested and it was successful, so no errors were found, then you can inform the IT about the test results. So we see here, test solution, then there the maker is more talking with the business and with the IT. The IT tests the solution, and the IT is also aware about the needed approvals. And then we are on the production side, and on the production side, the maker is only an end user. So the maker does not have any, I would say, higher permissions as the end user from the business who was testing the solution. So sharing the solution after the deployment. So deployment is done. And now the IT needs to know which people will use the solution in a productive state. So that's something the IT has to do. And then there's one last point for the maker. So the maker should inform the end users about the new or updated solutions. So if you are your own end user, then you don't need to do this. But if you have some end users, then think about how to write a message in Teams or create an article in your intranet or write the email. It depends how communication is working in your company. So, and now we saw these three different areas, what's going on there. So development, quality assurance, and production. And if we are doing this in the Power Platform, then these are called environments. So an environment, that's something you can create, and that's where we need to do some technical stuff, because in I would say the default setting, you only have one environment. So an admin needs to create the other environments and tell which environment used for what. Mm, but it's really nice, because if the production environment is something where the makers don't have any permissions to do something, so in the productive environment they cannot build solutions, then it's nice, because you can say from an IT department perspective, okay, I only support solutions which are in the productive environment. If you are doing something in dev or in QA, that's nice for you. But if something is going wrong, then dear maker, it's your job to fix it. So I'm not doing support for this. And this helps IT departments a lot of out there, because if you think, okay, how many people do you have in the IT department? How many people do you have in the whole company? Then it doesn't really match to say, okay, now everybody can build a solution. Maybe there will be so think about 1,000 people in the company, and after 1 year of citizen development, maybe you have 3,000 workflows, and you have 500 apps or whatever, and you don't really know if they are used in a productive state or not. So the IT department would not be able to manage all the stuff. But with this separation, it's going in a good way, and only to group it a little bit right here. If we talk about Power Platform governance, then you can also go with these 4 bullet points, because we said, okay, it starts with building your solution, but an improvement for this process would also be that you have some kind of a use case check-in. So if I am a citizen developer, if I am a maker, I have an idea to improve a business process. It would be really cool if I would have a place where I can add my idea. That would be the use case check-in. So I have a use case and I check it in. So I describe a little bit what's the problem, what's the current situation, and then I describe how I want to solve it. And then if this is possible, it's not possible in every company, but if it's possible and you know, okay, the main business processes in your company have a responsible person, then this responsible person could look on your use case check-in and could say, okay, that's right, we can improve this, that's a good idea, go for it. Or could say, no, it's not a good option because it's already solved by another person, or it's the process is working as it is, so we don't want to have an improvement or change right there. So if you have a responsible person for your business processes, then that would be an option. In other companies, I already did this in a separate way. So we said, okay, if you want to roll out the Power Platform, then it would be good to have some kind of key users. So people who are trained in the governance, who are trained in using the Power Platform tools. And they are I would say, the first version of the Power Platform community in this company. And these key users, so you can start with a small group, maybe you have 3 or 5 people, so it's always good to have an odd numbering in your community or your key users who are checking the ideas and who are doing the approval. And the IT can be part of this, but the IT doesn't need to be part of this. So that's always something you need to, sorry, you need to figure out. Um, so it depends on the company itself. But if you got the approval, then you can build your solution. And now you see the central solution catalog at the last tile right here on the slide. Because if you have a place where you enter your idea and it's approved, and then you build your solution, then you already have some data where your solution is described, and maybe you can extend or complete this data with a description and maybe a screenshot or whatever for your solution. And then this place can be your central solution catalog. So other people who have a good idea can maybe watch this central solution catalog first and then say, okay, yeah, somebody else already had my idea, so I contact this person and I figure out if there is something I can add because my idea is a little bit more or a little bit different than the other person did. So maybe you can also say, okay, I don't need to reinvent the wheel at this time. And in other cases, you see, okay, your solution is not there. So that's a place where you start with step 1 and then you check in your use case. Yeah, and how it's built. So there are different options how you can build the solution. So if I go here to my tenant, so here's a Power Platform. So I start with Power Apps right here. We all see this. Then you have this point or this menu item for solutions. And you could say, okay, I create a new solution because a solution is some kind of a packaging stuff. So everything which is in a solution can be deployed from one environment to the other. So it's really like sending sending somebody a combination of your Power App, your 2 workflows, and maybe a dashboard or so. Yeah, and here are the different environments. So for me, in my example, I only have this default environment, and then I would have dev. So maybe you need the quality assurance, the production environment, and so on. So we can create this environment in the admin center. I'm not doing this at the moment because I want to focus on something else in the remaining time. But how does it start? So I said, okay, everybody is working with SharePoint or with Teams, so I create a SharePoint list. I create a SharePoint list right here, and if you watch this, you have a solution name, you have some remarks, and we have a status. So maybe I say, okay, I want to create something. Which fields are there really depends on your requirements. So I had a customer where I did some extensions for this. So they said, okay, I want to have a field for the idea name, so some kind of a title, then the solution name, so the technical name which is used in the Power Platform is something which needs to be calculated in the background. Then the remarks, that's where I describe the current situation and how I want to solve it. And here I said here in my demo, I only have the attachment field right there. So the attachments that could be the part where you add your documentation. If you don't want to go with documents, then you could also go with such a multi-line field as well. And here task. At this moment, I said, okay, for the demo, I want to have it available for us right here. But you could also say, okay, it's a field which is not shown in the form because it always starts that I have a new idea. Somebody needs to approve this. After the approval, the status changes in the background and so on. And yeah, behind this list, you can create your workflows. So here in my case, I already opened this here in Power Automate. I say, okay, every time when an item is created or modified, then he should check if there is a solution with the solution name, and he should queue an export and build process. You see this Azure DevOps icon right here. So you can go with pipelines in the Power Platform, but that's only a good option if you have everything built on top on the Power Platform. So if you're going with Dataverse, with Power Automate, Power Apps, and so on. So a lot of companies out there, there's also SharePoint is an option. So you have some SharePoint lists and whatever. So in this case, it's not working in a good way with the Power Platform pipelines, and also the Power Platform pipelines mean another licensing again. So that was the case where except of one, all my other customers said, okay, I want to go with Azure DevOps because it's a little bit cheaper for me and I have it a little bit more into control. So then you say, okay, I have here my pipelines. So I export my Power Platform solution. I store it in a repository and I prepare everything. Then I start an approval for the IT department. And after the IT department said, okay, everything is fine, then a new release is created. That's the part where you go to another environment. So this is only the part to go from dev to QA, but you can think about a huger workflow who is also doing the approval part and the stuff for the production. And at the end, you update your SharePoint list item so the status changes in the background. Yeah, and only to see this right here, there you see, okay, I have here my pipelines and maybe I go to the release pipeline. So you have 3 pipelines, one for export, one to build your solution, and the last one for the release itself. Then you see, okay, I go with everything which is prepared by the pipelines before, and then you have QA, you have the production, so different stages, and you can go with approvals right there if you want to. Yeah, that's everything I have prepared so far. So as I said, if there are some questions, so please add them to the chat, or please contact me later on LinkedIn or X so I can answer them. And so, yeah, I say thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you learned a lot of stuff about Power Platform governance. Thank you to the sponsors. Thank you to the organizers. And yeah, then I hand it over to the moderator again.
Thanks a lot.